Hey Luis, how's it going? Taking a look at this. This is really coming along. I really like seeing all the progress you're making week to week on this. So let's take a look, break it down bit by bit.
Dad? Dad? Dad loved superheroes.
So it's great. Let's focus on this. Let's take a look at this little chunk here.
Dad? Dad loved superheroes. Dad?
Anything you can do to kind of emphasize the largeness of the mouth. I'm not super sure about this mouth shape, but I'm also not super sure what you can do with your rig. But if there's a way to kind of simplify the lower lip so it's less of like this S curve like this, and to get it more just like a simplified shape like that while still having it look like a human's mouth, that would be a good goal. But also maybe just to open, because like when I listen to the contrast,
Dad?
that dad is pretty big. So, but yeah.
Dad loved superheroes. Dad.
Also here, maybe I would suggest that we bring like the mouth corners down just a little bit for the loved. Like it's like a ugh. And it'll also maybe make it look like the kid's a little less like happy. Not that they look happy, but maybe something a little bit more like this shape. I'm not sure if that's achievable. Just a suggestion. Okay, cool. If there's a, I feel like the soup purr is working, but I'm missing kind of that H sound. So if there's a way to kind of like get it something more like wider, maybe a little more open at the corners, I'm gonna draw this like a cartoonist, not like something you can hit in 3D necessarily, but the idea is that you're like really wide on those corners with a little bit of space in between the teeth. Like heroes, your corners would pull super wide. I'm kind of missing that wideness. And if there's a way to get like narrow just here for like a little bit more narrow for the R in heroes, that would be cool. And then go wider, hero.
Dad?
Yeah, cool. Anyways, those are nitpicky, polishy kind of things.
Dad loved superheroes. Dad? Dad loved superheroes. Dad? Dad loved superheroes. Dad? Dad loved superheroes. Dad? Dad loved superheroes.
Okay, I'm gonna look at the next bit.
He believed in them.
I would already get into an H sound right, like before here, where the kid's about to say like he believed in them. You know, I'm probably drawing this like way too wide, but something more like wide and the teeth either together or just slightly separated. Because you can get the mouth into position like before the sound comes, like in anticipation of the word that your character is gonna say, like, and he is just almost like one shape where the corners just go a little bit from, like maybe this is where the H is here, and then when you say he, Yeah, this can be a fine heat. I don't know, again, if there's a way to kind of like get these corners like to be a little less pinched and a little more open. Also, this right shape, I always feel like the teeth are like back in the mouth to the left and the lips are not. So see if there's a way to kind of design that where it feels like there's a little more, I don't know, like it almost feels like the teeth are being treated like a 2D thing, or they're not sitting quite in the right spot in the mouth. But anyways, I digress. So he is like it's the same shape almost, it just widens in width and it maybe opens a little bit, you know, like there's separation in the teeth. Like this looks like a good he kind of separation with the teeth and everything. But that H sound would be very similar to that. And I like this he, that B is great. Believed. I think you're doing great for the believe. The L is all fine here. But then believed, I think we need to see the mouth more open and probably a little wider for that E shape again. He believed, so open it a little bit more. And of course I'm not just drawing like perfect mouth shapes or anything, but it feels closed here. And then this is good for the VD of believed. That can serve as both of those sounds. And yeah, the rest of that finishes nicely. Yeah, so I think there's just maybe like a little bit of work to do.
He believed in them.
To like really make it clear.
He believed in them. He believed in them. He believed in them.
There's a little funkiness happening with here, like here we're like elbow out on this screen right arm, and then it pops kind of like elbow in, and I don't feel like that's super motivated or kind of necessary, you know what I mean? So I would just pick one or the other, and I think the elbow in feels a little bit more natural to me, you know, and it's fine to have a gesture and a change and all that there, but it feels weird to go like elbow out in this case, you know what I mean? Okay, it does feel a lot too, like right here the shoulder really grows in width, and I know maybe that's part of how this rig is rigged, but if there's any way you can translate that shoulder to kind of keep the same narrowness, it's great to rotate it up and down and to animate it, but it feels like it kind of pulls away from the body, or like the volume of the upper chest is growing, because like here if you notice, like it feels like this character is kind of like shaped like this, right, in this section, which is like wider at the waist, kind of like narrower towards the shoulders, but the minute those get rotated out, then it feels much more like the character is equally wide in the shoulders as the waist. It like turns more into like a square than the trapezoid. Just a polishing note. All right. Moving along.
These are not heroes. These are not heroes. These are not heroes.
Okay. Expanding that a little bit.
These are not heroes. These are not heroes. These are not.
I'm getting a little bit of a sense, and maybe that's not true, but that like the mom's head rotation is kind of like along a single axis. So when you rotate the head, I feel this nice, there's an arc happening here, right? Like if I track her nose, I'm feeling like it goes down. before it goes to the left. So if we take a look at this, you can really see that arc, the nose being drawn there, which is awesome. But then when it goes from screen left here, it feels like maybe it just goes straight across. So if there's any way to introduce like a little bit of an arc into that as well, I think that'll take it off of kind of like computer axes, you know, that make things look a little less than organic. I would take a pass and loosen up. I know that this is something I talk about a lot, but I feel like a lot of the rotation is coming from here, and I'm not seeing a lot of like breakup between the top of the chest here and like what the neck is doing, you know? So maybe as the chest rotates back, you have to kind of counter it. So let's say this is like, oh, I don't know. I'll just do like the profile of her face here. You know, as it starts to go back, her face drags and kind of stays in the same profile, which means that's going to happen by the neck like slightly rotating this way to counter the rotation that is coming from down here, just to keep that all feeling like loose and organic and stuff. That's really going to help like break it up. And the same thing when you start going forward here, right? Like this and this feel like it's all moving like together, right? So like this should feel independent. The green should feel independent from the purple. So again, maybe you want to drag the neck, and it's just a little, we're just talking about a little bit of drag, you know, to keep it loose. And the same happens again when she goes back here, as it feels kind of like the neck is tied into the chest. There's a rotation that I'm seeing here. So like if this is the center of the rib cage, feels like just for a couple frames that center of the rib cage like rotates over this way. So if you're going to keep that in, I would ease it out of that motion, or maybe I would suggest taking it out altogether. It feels like a bit of complexity that doesn't really feel justified or natural. I'm not sure.
These are not heroes. These are not heroes. These are not heroes.
But yeah, so let me take a look at the lip sync.
These are not heroes. Are not heroes.
Yeah, so I'm feeling the H. That's great. I'm feeling that H, but I'm kind of missing. Sorry. Forever. I'm gonna forever struggle trying to remember what the hotkey is to pan once I'm zoomed in. I'm missing a difference between the R and the O. So the R in heroes. So the R needs to be smaller and the O's need to be bigger. Heroes. So maybe you can go a little bit smaller around here and then open it up into what you have like here. Like maybe this is good and you keep that, but you hit like a tighter R sound or a tighter ooh shape to hit that R sound. You know what I mean?
These are not heroes. These are not heroes. These heroes.
It feels like too, along with that chest rotation here that I was talking about, it also is pulling the head, rotating with it, and that's giving it like a little hitch when you watch it at speed, you can
Not
see a little,
heroes.
the head has like a little hitch in it because it's being pulled rotationally by that chest rotation. Maybe that's coming from the cog, it's hard to tell. Anyways, I would try to ease that out, you know? Okay, moving on to the next bit, the next phrase.
If they were, your father would still be here.
Cool, so.
If they were, your father would still be here.
Cool. I like what you have going on with the body here.
Your father would still be here.
It's sharp.
If they were, your father would still be here.
But I think it needs a little ease out of this move. Or ease in, because it's a big mass, right? The rib cage and chest of a character is like, it should have a little bit of inertia. It's going to be hard to like make it stop and bounce back on a dime like that, unless it's like hitting a solid object. So I would have just a little bit more ease. It's subjective if it's ease in or ease out, but whatever. Just ease to change direction. You need a little bit more ease to make this directional change, or at least to slow it down and stop. And that's going to be true. Like again, the neck feels locked in with the torso. So it may be a good idea on this one to like lead with the neck. You know what I mean? Where like a few frames before you do this motion, you're beginning to lead with the neck while holding the torso at the same, more or less the same rotational value. So you're like kind of keeping this one back while rotating this one forward. I'm not sure how you have your character set up, but to kind of like lead with the head so it doesn't feel super stiff like this. And it, because the neck isn't being rotated independently of the chest, it also has the head kind of hitting that same wall that chest hits and bouncing back, where like I'd like to see the head and everything like still kind of have forward. It's going to make it feel like it has weight and mass and inertia and all that stuff. So it's just like breaking up the movement of the neck and head from the torso is gonna really help all this feel loose and organic and weighty.
If they were, your father would still be here. If they were, your father would still be here.
Okay, so looking at the lip sync phrasing of this,
if they were,
I'm missing out on kind of like the if part of this because we end the previous phrase in if we're saying if, like if this is anticipation of the if, that's great, but then once they start making the sound if, we need to show it be a little bit bigger. So I'd grow, I'd drop the jaw, rotate the jaw down, show that if it needs to grow from like a non-sound, if. So it's not only about dropping down the jaw, but it's about pulling the corners. And if it's like, well, this is already pretty wide for where the corners go for the character looking on model, then you should try to shrink the corners when you're more at like a resting pose, right? This is sort of like a resting pose with the mouth. So you can narrow the corners so you have somewhere to go when you say if. Okay.
if they were, you're...
That's fine for if they. But I feel like for were, we need to see something more narrow, like maybe jaw more closed for the W. So that's going to be tough because you have to go from like narrow W were to like something wider. And then back to here, like where you're at here. Like this feels good to end were. I would think that even you could stay wide at the ends. So if you wanted to like slip this, whoops, I shouldn't draw an arrow for that. But if you would want to move this pose of the mouth, like to the end of were, just for like, you know, the RE at the end of were, then then you don't have to go back so tight. Okay.
If they were your father. Were your father.
Cool. This is all working. I make sure that father is kind of like one of the bigger mouth shapes that you have, and this is pretty big. And I know that like it's hard, but this feels really huge. So I would just narrow this slightly. I'm not talking like a lot, but I would just save a little gas in the tank for father, because if father definitely feels like slightly bigger than this, even though I think it's correct instincts to make this large. I think with the tongue, like, it's kind of in betweening. I would have it be in its default pose here, so that it's going to quickly move up to the teeth when you need to, but it's not going to in between and be like kind of slow. You know what I mean? So have it be, it probably wouldn't be very visible here. So we're going to see it kind of like shoot up to the roof of the mouth for father. And then you have to kind of hold it there. Or at least like favor the pose towards top. It can't just like touch it for one frame and then go in the other direction. For +1 frames. I'll just say frame. So that should just be a little bit of a rest. And so you're trying to do father and would. It's almost like the same mouth shape. This feels really kind of big. Again, maybe it's just the angle that we're looking at this character, but look at the width of that upper lip and how much lip we're seeing. I'll try to make sure that you're not doing any kind of like lip roll or anything that makes that distance feel larger. Or if there's a way you can shape it where that distance feels, that mass feels less large. Because right now it's like almost twice the size of the lower lip that we're seeing. So it's kind of grabbing me as slightly odd. But let's get back to the shapes. For B, if there's any way to kind of like unpinch the corner again for that E, you know, to make it not come to such a narrow thing, but maybe come to more like a rounded thing for those shapes. And then on the here, for the R on here, I would narrow. You don't have to be full on like a tiny U shape, but it should be narrowed for that R. B here. It feels like it should be more narrow.
Were your father would still be here.
But all in all, it's working. So it's great stuff. Good job. Keep going.
Dad? Dad loved superheroes. He believed in them.
These are not heroes. If they were, your father would still be here.
Dad? Dad?
I like this head on her being sharp, but I feel like you need a little bit more cushion before it starts moving back, because if we start tracking the nose here, you know, like this is great that it comes down but then it like instantly starts going up without much of inertia, right? So I would think that you would have to, let me make this a different color, like ease out of this down a little bit to like get back into your upward pose, you know what I mean? So like if you're watching the
Be here.
Dad?
that'll make it feel like it has a little bit more mass
Your
and stuff.
father would still be here.
Dad? Dad loved superheroes.
Okay, that's what I got. Good stuff. And yeah, keep up. Hopefully you get time to address the notes and everything. I feel like this has like really come a long way. So good work, Luis. All right.